Hi, this is Victoria Vives from Earth Sky People Radio. And today we have a special guest. His name is Core Love. And I know about him since a while ago. And what I was very impressed about is his story about 300 near death experiences. After that, I know that he has grown so much and he has so many things, new things to share with us. So we have here today Core Love.
Hey, thank you, Victoria, for having me. It's such a pleasure, and I look forward to to sharing with everybody who you know.
Wonderful. And I would love for you to share this that really impressed me. I was listening to your videos time ago and I saw this of the 300 near-death experiences and how that brought amazing insight and experiences to your life. Would you share about that?
Yeah, that was from a car accident, that I was in. I was 10 years old, and I ended up getting into a pretty serious car accident with my brother and my grandma. My little brother pretty much got the worst of it. His whole right side of his body was paralyzed, and he had to learn everything all over again. So he was 7 years old, and he actually died in the accident and was brought back to life. Fortunately by a person who just who came across the accident. Um, for me, I ended up losing all my long-term memory from before the accident, so I couldn't remember anything from previous. And then my short-term memory was about 3 to 5 days, and it would kind of fluctuate. Um, During the accident was my first near-death experience, um, and my brother actually had one too, which was pretty neat because in my near-death experience, I was sitting up with somebody. I didn't know it was my brother.
Oh.
And then this other guy came up and he says, "Oh, don't worry, you guys, you'll be back right away." And we're like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, wait a moment. You said this guy, so who was that guy?
I have no idea.
Wow. Okay. I'll let you continue.
So it was about 4 years to realize that my memory was gone from before the car accident, because you don't realize that it's gone when it's not there. And there was clues and signs kind of leading up to that, and eventually the pieces kind of came together, and I realized, I was like, wait a sec, I can't actually remember, because I just get frustrated if people ask me questions about my past, and I just get frustrated, and I'd be like, I don't know, but I never really thought that I can't get into it. And so once I realized that I couldn't remember anything from before my accident, and then I started questioning what else is wrong with my brain and what's going on, and eventually I realized that it was over a long weekend at school, and it was a 4-day holiday with the Friday and the Monday off. And we got back to school on Tuesday, and my teacher starts asking me all these questions. And he's like, "How can you not know any of this? This was from like Thursday. This is what we worked on right before the weekend." And then I realized, I was like, I have no memory of what he was talking about. And that's kind of when I started dialing in like the length of time, that I can remember information.
Wow.
Um, my brain started going a little crazy after that, because when you don't remember what you've done, I think most of us have experimented with alcohol before and got really drunk one night and kind of couldn't really remember what happened, and you feel like kind of traumatized because you're like, oh, I hope I didn't do something stupid. And then your friend's like, oh, you should have seen you're a mess, and fallen over, and you're like, oh God, oh no, what did I do, right? But that was like my life every day, because I had no idea what I'd done in my past, and I could engage, like if you get into an argument with a friend or a lover or a family member, you're angry or upset for a couple hours, but then your brain harmonizes because it says, hey, you know what? This isn't really that big of a deal. Remember this whole history that you have together. Remember when they did this, and you were up, and you did it to them, and like, it goes back and forth. We learn with each other, right? So that's how our brains neutralize those charges, when we get into arguments. But my brain couldn't pull any memory. And
Wow.
so there was no real way to gauge, how angry someone was or how I should react. And so my brain would just kind of do this downward spiral, and it would question everything, and then it would start attacking itself, and to the point where I was just like, you just didn't want to live anymore. Everybody was better off without me because I don't even know what I'm doing, and then eventually my brain would just get loaded out with so much charge and emotion and just being lost that it would basically it would kick in almost like a type of a seizure. And your body goes into a seizure because you've got a damaged neuron in your brain, and when a signal goes through, that electric charge jumps into your cerebral fluid and electrocutes your brain and fires all your neurons at once, and that's in order for your brain to not blow its circuits. It's like a fuse box. It puts you into a seizure, and it shakes it out of you. So you use motion to get all that energy and discharge out of your brain and into your body, where you shake it out. And so that's basically like a breaker switch on a fuse box in your house blowing, but that's what happens in your brain. So because my brain couldn't recalibrate and restabilize, it would send me into these same type of seizures, and my brain would almost go into like a reboot. And probably the easiest way I can explain it is like when you're on a computer, especially a PC, and you're clicking, and you get that spinning color wheel of death, and that thing never stops spinning, and you're like, oh, all I can do is reboot.
Oh, that sounds very bad. Oh my
God. And that's what would happen with my brain, was that I'd go through that same reboot. So I'd go into, more of the seizures where my body would shake and jolt, and I'd lose consciousness and wake up all startled, not know where I was, because there was no memory that was active. I couldn't recognize the people who I was around. And then my body would go into like a state of paralysis where my senses would dull and I couldn't see or couldn't hear anymore. And I wouldn't be able to move my body, and then I'd feel my lungs start to give out, and I had to fight for breath. And then eventually it just, you let go because you can't fight anymore. And it was usually about 5 minutes, and then I start to become aware that I was actually in my body again. And I feel energy start moving through my body, and within about 15 minutes, my senses were kicking back on, and I could start to see, and then I was starting to move and be able to just roll over or crawl. And after about 30 minutes, I was standing up, and about 45 minutes, this energy that just did not stop coming through my body. And so it was like this huge reboot. I say it was kind of like a near-death experience, but it was kind of almost the opposite. It was like an in-body experience.
Wow.
Where there's so much energy and spirit coming into the body, and I could move really fast. My senses started getting brighter. I could see like the different colors in the air, which people call auras. But eventually I came to realize I was actually seeing the different gases in the air and how they were intermingling and how they'd separate naturally from no motion in the room.
Wow. It is good to feel that it wasn't everything bad, but this actually sounds like something positive, a positive experience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when the energy would come into the body, it was like euphoric. I never wanted it to end, And they'd last anywhere from 2 to 8 hours. And then as I got a bit older, they'd last, from 12 to 16 hours. The longest one lasted for 4 days.
Wow.
And that was one of the last ones that I had.
When was that last one? Just as a curiosity.
The last one was in 1999. Towards the end, I think it was like November of 1999, and then it was a really amazing experience though, because of the amount of energy that was moving through. So every time that it happened in these, the difficult part was after the energy would wear off, my brain felt like mush. My body hurt from the seizures. I could barely move. I couldn't talk proper because my brain was just mush. It felt like I had the worst hangover, the next day.
Wow.
And I was just recuperating, once that energy kind of wore off. And then the next day I was, kind of recuperating again. The day after I felt good. And then it was like the day after I felt good, there was always some type of conflict that happened that would set my brain off and it would spin out again. and then the day after I go back into the same near-death type of experience, or like, so it was a cycle. It was every 5 days. It lasted for about 5 years. Um, I got good at it, like I evolved through the process. So every time that it happened, I learned that if I close my eyes and I go inside and kind of face demons and like things that I was scared of, or almost like simulated experiences. Um, and as I stabilized them and worked through them, there was more energy that would move through me, and my senses would open up more. And I realized there was a whole development model and process inside of there. And after that started when I was 14, and started getting real strong when I was 15. And by 16, when these would happen, my eyes would fully open up, and it would just like seeing through a veil. And there would be people that would walk up that were inside the walls. We could have full-on conversations.
Oh my
There'd be
goodness.
like goddesses dancing in the skies, and I call them the gods and goddesses, because their bodies are all like perfect, and they flow, and they're like so much harmony and unison.
So you still have a relationship with these beings coming in and out from the veil?
Yeah, yeah, and I got to know them, and then I got to go, on travels and tour to like other worlds and see other civilizations and how they work, and tell them about mine, and they'd be like, "Oh, dude, yours sucks." I'm like, "Your guys is awesome. I don't want to come back." And then I'd feel like that suction, like pulling me back out of that place. I'm like, "No, no, no! Don't let them take me."
So, for example, are you familiar with beings from Orion or the Pleiades or Lyra? Are you familiar with those civilizations?
That's the weird part, is that it was all my personal memory that was wiped out. And so that also included like people's names, being able to remember people's faces, location, also all the personal wants and desires, but also all the things that we get hung up on as an individual. So I kind of lost those, and that's what kept me moving up. A lot of my like a lot of the emotion that I was in or felt was very like, I was very cold and kind of robotic. As I started to progress through it, and there wasn't a lot of emotion or feeling. It was more like a machine, or like I felt more like a robot, because there wasn't that individuality that was there. And through all the visions that I went through, I never ever got any names. I never ever knew where I went. I couldn't connect that way, because that was the part that was damaged in my brain, and so my brain wouldn't generate it when I was going through the experiences. So I kind of feel like there's this whole other level of what I went through that's completely untapped and incomplete, because I don't know any of those details.
And that is fine. Sometimes we just put the tags, and it's not so necessary. I had also some encounters with other beings,
Yeah.
and I have no idea who they were. And I received some information about it through some teachers, but ultimately I'm not sure if that is true or not. And
Yeah.
I think the experience itself is what is really valuable.
Yeah, there was only one name I ever got, and that was Dejora.
The joy.
Dejora, yeah. And she was every time that I'd be opening up, before my body would like fully open up and the veils would lift and I could interact with all the other beings. She basically like coached me on my life and said, "Okay, how's everything going? Oh, I totally screwed up this. I shouldn't have talked, but I did. I don't know. I just felt like it opened, and all of a sudden it's like coming back at me, because like." Because when you start talking about higher things to people who just are not there and are very in this world, it causes chaos in your life, and then you question stuff, and you get isolation, and you got to figure out how to like kind of put your life back together and kind of keep everything sane and normal. So she helped me with all of that and kind of helped keep me functional. So she was kind of like my own like private trainer.
Beautiful. And right now you have healed a lot of your brain, for what I understand, and you have created now your family, you have wives, you have children, so your life has really transformed, for what I see.
Yeah, it has. We went from like, not being able to function, at all, and then living on disability pension for quite a few years because I couldn't work because all the seizures and stuff I was going through, and and then to be able to, have technology and techniques that I learned from these places
Wow.
that ended up actually fixing my brain and my body, and I don't get those really major visions like I used to. Every once in a while I still do, but now they're kind of more stabilized and they're not as extreme. uh, but yeah, to all of a sudden have my life back, like 15 years after my car accident is nice.
So for the people that is tuning in now with us, what could you share with them that can also help them if they have any illness, whether it is physical, emotional, mental? What are some of the things that you would recommend for them?
One of the most profound things that I learned through all those visions was when I was still towards the end of when I was 16, and there's all these beings and they show me how their body works, and I'm like, I'm worshiping them. I'm like, wow, you guys are everything. What can I do for you? Tell me what to do. I'll do anything. And like, but they were always like up here, and I was always down here.
Huh?
And after a little while, I got angry. And then one time I was there, I just started screaming at them, and I was like, screw you guys. You guys got to live in this utopia. I'm like stuck. My body's falling apart, and you're like, oh, check out all the cool shit I can do while I'm like suffering and shit. I'm like, you're no different than me. You're the exact same. The only thing difference is you've been around for a lot longer, and I said, and you don't die, so you get to know stuff. I said, but you're no different than me. If I had your time, I'd be doing the same things as you. And they look at me and they're like, finally. And I'm like, what? I'm thinking I'm getting banished out of this whole place, right? And they're like, finally, we've been waiting for you to
Oh.
just step it up. And they're like, that's the real key question is how did we manage to keep our bodies alive so that we could live this long and learn all of these things? And they're like, that's the question right there. And the answer is that is very simple. There's an equation. If we use up more energy during the daytime than what we regenerate at night when we sleep, we're dying.
Mm.
And when we can increase the amount of energy that we're processing or converting at night while we sleep, and we have more energy that we're generating at night than what we're using during the daytime, the body regenerates itself. And they just broke it down very simple like that. And I wish it could stay that simple. But it ended up being this very whole complex journey. But that really kind of gave me my one mark, or my one goal that I needed to learn and figure out was how do we increase the body's natural healing abilities that occur at nighttime while we sleep.
Hmm.
When you start to study sleep, people, scientists and the world doesn't know why we dream. They don't even understand what we're doing while we sleep. They don't understand the processes. Why do you actually feel better when you wake up than when you went to bed? None of this stuff is known. Other things that aren't known is how the brain or the body stores memory. Even the idea of the body actually storing memory as like a hard drive instead of the brain is very out there. You get into circles of neurology, because the memory of our experiences is always in our brain. At least they think, but they don't know. So sleep is like a third of our life, so it becomes a very important mechanism. And by understanding the processes of how our body heals while we're sleeping, we can develop techniques and techniques so that we can duplicate or replicate those same type of processes while we're awake, giving us the ability to go in and target memories and target our past so that we can convert those charges and free up energy. And also technology that we can use while we're sleeping to enhance what the body is already naturally doing.
I would love to hear something about that. Can you guide us in a technique?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, like if we go out and we get somewhere where we're not at, we're on vacation, especially if we're out camping and we're out in nature. And you, even though the tent and it's not comfortable like the bed and stuff, you wake up and there's like a freshness and there's an openness and aliveness that happens. After a few days of being out in nature, it's like you start to become this other person, and everything is very simple. You get one thought, you're like, oh, we need to start a fire. Okay, let's go get wood. And there is nothing else. There's nothing else running through your mind. It's quiet. It's silent. It's the inner peace that we try and meditate for. It's the inner peace where we sit down and try and solve conflicts that's happening. And when I started to make these connections, I realized there's an environment that's affecting us in the cities and through technology.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
And so our nervous system runs on electrical charges. So there's electromagnetic communication taking place between our nervous system and the cells in our body. And so if we have electromagnetic fields constantly bombarding our body, that's also instructions that our body is picking up, but now it's coming from the environment. So, and the stronger these EMFs become, the more stressed we as people become, the more chaotic things become, because we have more information that's being activated.
Right. And even, sorry to interrupt, you think that also that has to do with how we feel sometimes that we don't have time for anything because we are processing so much information around us?
Yeah. Once I started to realize the impact that electromagnetic frequencies were having on our bodies, I sat down and I was talking with my grandparents, and they said, yeah, we don't know what's going on. When we were young, we'd wake up in the morning, we had steak, we had baked potatoes, we had corn on the cob. They had their dinner in the morning for breakfast. And he says, and then we wouldn't eat the rest of the day. That was our breakfast, was our meal, and then we were on the tractor, we were working the farms, and he says it is real heavy work, and a lot of effort. And then they wouldn't eat again until dinner time. He said that bit of food lasted the whole day. He says, but now if I eat a steak or even a baked potato, I can just eat one baked potato and that's it. And now I get tired. I get worn out. The food doesn't give me energy anymore like what it used to when I was a kid. And he says, I don't know why or what's happening, or if it's just not enough minerals or what's going on inside of the food, but the food does not do what it did when I was a kid. And and they're older, so they got like, well, he had like 80 years experience, eating food and knowing how it affects them, And so I started realizing, well, the really high-powered electromagnetic lines are running through all the farms. And those electromagnetic fields are affecting the way that the food is growing. And it's affecting the nucleus and the genetic material of the food. And it's reprogramming the type of energy that food gives us. And so now, instead of our food giving us energy to get up and go, it gives us energy to make us sit down and think.
Oh my goodness, so much of that I resonate with, because I feel that all of our society is so focused on technology, which I love, The thing is that this technology is not helping our well-being, or, like, for example, I feel that nature is an amazing system. If we can really create things that support that system, we can live a much better life. But right now, it's just, I'm looking for a way to live in harmony. I'm creating an intentional community so that I can live in harmony with nature. And one of the things that I'm really surprised and kind of upset about is that most people right now is instead to be around the fire when they are eating, are around the television when they are eating. Things like that. That we are losing that connection with one another, with the elements that have the real power. So, that thing touches me a lot. So.
Yeah, because you're missing out on the communication and conversation and the laughs, with each other, focusing on something else. Yeah, that's definitely a big loss. That's actually a huge part of what we're doing, and our like mission in life. Uh, we actually just moved down here to Costa Rica,
Right.
and
Exciting.
it was exactly for this. It was to get back into nature. Costa Rica is very unique because it doesn't have a military.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No.
So that's it's a very unique characteristic. And in terms of energy, when we talk about like energy healers and natural health and healing the body, there's always this stigma around money.
Hmm.
And should it be free or is it valuable to take money? There's this whole charge around it, and nobody really understands why it is or where it comes from.
Hmm.
And it's actually very simple once you understand it. It has to do with taxes
Hmm.
and the way that memory systems are set up. So we have like inside of our memories, we have, if you close your eyes, and you think back to like Christmas, you can see you can see your family that were there. If you go, oh, we had to run to the store because we didn't have enough corn. Oh, now there's the people at the store. And there's your environment. It's grandparents' house where you're having dinner. They've got a garden out. They got the big trees. They got a basketball net set up for the kids. There's an environment that's stored inside of your memory, and that's the environment of the planet. And the environment holds patterns and the rule sets that we use to guide and determine how we're going to function. So when we change the flow of energy in our house by rearranging the furniture, it feels different. New patterns emerge, or we've changed by taking on new patterns, and our environment doesn't match us anymore, so we need to shift our environment.
Hmm.
So when you're in a country that has a high military budget and you pay taxes, it enrolls your body is being enrolled into a system, and your body holds you responsible for investing or supporting an entity or a government or a corporation that's actually causing chaos in the world. And so our actions, hold us accountable. And most people don't understand that. So when you get into a country that doesn't have the military and they take their tax money and they got rid of their military and they said instead of soldiers, we're going to hire teachers.
Oh my goodness, how beautiful.
And so just being in that environment where what you're building and what you're contributing to the country isn't going towards destroying some other country.
Right.
Just a completely different feeling and sensation and experience inside of the body. So that's but that's kind of where that thing comes in. When you start making too much money, then you have to pay taxes. But when you pay taxes and you cut off this connection that you have, because now you're partly responsible for what's taking place with the money that you had to pay. And it's kind of
Oh,
this catch-22. You can't really get out of it, and that's part of the actual keeping the human body suppressed. So
so, but where were you living before? Where you are?
uh, we went from Boulder, Colorado to we toured for a year in an RV, and then we went to Vegas, of all places, for a couple of years. We built out this big warehouse, and we didn't really know why. I'm like, I don't know, I just got to do it. And we like put in bathrooms, and we turned a warehouse into a loft. And then one day we woke up and we said, why are we here? Let's go to Mexico, and we'll live on the ocean.
Hmm.
So we let go of our place there, in Vegas, moved to Mexico, and then we're like, okay, this is feeling good. I feel so different being in a different country. And then my son, he says, Dad, can we go surfing? I'm like, well, no, we got to go to the West Coast to surf. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to find you a good beach. And then I go to Costa
Oh.
Rica, started studying about Costa Rica, no military. And then my brain started tapping into the way that these memory systems work. I'm like, this is actually like a really huge thing. And then all this stuff started coming together. We ended up actually living in a resort in Mexico for a year. And I'm like, why are we living in a resort? You know? And why were we just in Vegas for 2 years building this whole loft and these like huge training centers? We built this one room that it was basically like a huge ascension chamber, except it was a 5,000 square foot like warehouse ascension chamber with like tons of lights and like, DJ type music, with a bunch of sacred G technology and energy technologies under the floor. People would come in there and they'd just be like, whoa, what is this place? Nobody wanted to leave ever. And I started putting stuff together. I'm like, why are we doing this? I'm like, I'm like, we're going to make a resort. That's what we're being trained.
Oh, nice.
And if you've been following along with a lot of the, this underground kind of revolution that's taking place, there's inventors and people developing new technology and new systems and new education and new health models, new, ways to educate and train the body. But they're all separated all over the place. Everybody's just kind of doing individual, unique testing. And I was like, we're going to build a resort, but it's, on the outside, it's going to be a resort, but really on the inside, it's going to be, it's going to be a sustainable model of a community where we can actually test out these different technologies and bring people together and set up conferences. And so we're just actually bringing in some investors, to be able to make this resort a possibility here. And then I'm like, okay, now everything for like the last few years makes complete sense.
Amazing. I love that. And we mentioned about a technique that you can share with us, and I want to make sure that we follow up on that.
Yeah, I can walk you through a technique right now. It's a breathing technique, and this we call it the G breath, and then there's a more advanced one we call the one breath. This breath, though, is super powerful. Just from knowing this one breathing sequence, you can basically heal the majority of stuff that's going on with your body, unless it's something really extreme. And the results happen in a minute or two. They don't take a week. They don't take a month. They happen in literally like a minute or two. Wow. So I'll just walk you through the process so you know the breath. Just when you do breathe, make sure that you take deep, full breaths. And I'm going to walk you through it, and we're going to be changing speeds a couple times. So I'll tell you what to do, and I'll kind of walk you through it, okay?
Okay, I'm excited.
Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do is just breathe out through your mouth and empty your lungs. And now in through your mouth. And out through your mouth. In through your mouth. And out through your nose. In through your nose. And out through your nose. In through your nose. And out through your mouth. In through your mouth. And out through your mouth. Good job. And this time we're just going to do a slow breath. So in through your mouth, nice and slow. And out through your nose, nice and slow. And a medium breath in through your nose. And out through your nose. And this one's really fast, so in through your nose, like 1 second, and out through your mouth. And just the average speed again, in through your mouth, and out through your mouth. Good. And just relax. How you feeling?
Feels very cleansing.
Yeah.
And very relaxing. And this is one technique that you have learned from your Beyond the Veil friends, or just that you have created?
I've known this technique since 2004. This is what we use to do a lot of our own healing. Because my brother and I both had neurological damage, and nerves just don't necessarily heal. And there's not really stuff that's out there. You can't take pills. There's not really technologies that are out there that really heal your body in the same way. And so we found that the solution was to go inside to our own memories, connect with our body, and we'd bring up charges, or we'd activate memories, and then we use the breath to convert those charges.
Oh.
So this is like a two-part process. So the first part is activating memory. And when you think of memory, it's not just your past memories, but it's also your senses. It's your muscle fibers. It's cellular memory. It's your organs. They all store memory. And so when you push on pressure points on your body and it hurts, that's where charge is. And so a charge, your muscle filaments are these dual coils. They're like a spring. And when they have a charge, they're tight.
Mm.
And then what happens is when you push, because that muscle fiber is so tight, it doesn't flex or bend. It actually starts to tear your muscle. Just little tiny tears, but it tears it. That's why you get the pain. And when you push in, that hurts. Okay. What happened is that pain carries a signal up to your brain that says that hurt, but it also carries up why that hurt. And that's the memory that your body's storing, which is basically just past memory, past experiences that you've gone through throughout your life that's stored in your muscle filaments as a hard drive and haven't been processed.
That would be like a storing the solution for the pain?
Yeah. So you push in, you make it hurt, and you can feel the tightness in the muscle. It brings up the actual memory, and now that memory is in your active state, now you do the breath. When you get that lightheaded sensation, what happens is your brain converted those charges by moving that energy in a circuit, and it generates a gamma wave in your brain. And a gamma wave produces a neurotransmitter called gamma aminobutyric acid. And this neurotransmitter is released, so when you get that lightheaded sensation, it's sending that gamma signal back down through your nervous system to the point where you activate it. And it's releasing this neurotransmitter, GABA, is a short name of it. And GABA relaxes the muscle filament back to its neutral position.
Wow.
And so then you can push on the spot, and the pain is dropped. So you might go from an 8 down to a 5.
Beautiful. And for people that wants to learn more about these techniques and train with you, do you offer right now trainings in person or only online? How does this work?
We have a lot of workshops that actually happen in Mexico. We got a lot of people in Mexico who are trained up, and we do a lot of courses online. We have a membership that we've been we have the membership now, but we've been basically building the membership so that we can start bringing a lot of people into it. So we kind of worked out all the details and the kinks and all that, because otherwise things can get chaos if you get too many people and things aren't running smooth. So we have a really amazing membership that has about 800 hours of training videos in different techniques, in energy and breath, in the brain, educational videos. We've got like natural facelifts, because you can actually go in and activate certain memory on your face, and you convert those charges. And when you do, all of a sudden your cheekbones raise up a little bit.
Ooh.
And you can do ones, around your jaw here, and all of a sudden your jaw drops down and back, and so it makes your face thinner, and it pulls your skin tighter.
I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in that.
Yeah, the facelift is definitely the favorite, especially of women for some reason.
Why? So are you going to come to teach to Los Angeles anytime?
Probably in this next year, we're going to start really moving forward with workshops and trainings, again, which is really good. We wanted to make sure that, we had a good support structure. A lot of times you take a course and, you learn a lot, the technique's amazing, but because there's not a real major support structure in place, it's difficult to practice with other people. Right. The modality upgrades, and then you have to go take another course again, and, courses aren't necessarily cheap, especially if you're just going to upgrade and get that extra little bit. Most people like to because they get a chance to practice, So we built the whole system, using like all the Google network and Google apps and Hangouts, and so we have live classes pretty much every day of the week.
Wow.
Updates, it's on the website, and it's like, hey, check out these updates. So we have like weekly updates to different techniques or new breathing sequences that we learn, and then other people can also collaborate. If you're playing around with the techniques and you're like, oh wow, we just like made this huge connection, you can videotape it up, and upload it to your account, and you can share it with the whole membership.
And so, that is in livemastery.com?
Lifemastery.com, yeah. And we're just actually getting ready to launch and set that up. And we're going to have a lot of really amazing training on there that's free. We're going to get into all the breath training, and there's a lot of breath training that we know how to do. I've got over about 150 hours of breath training videos and walking people through techniques for different types of memories. And how to basically convert all these different types of memories and generate that gamma that opens up the body.
Now, changing a little bit of thing, I want to ask you if you have connected with the earth, with the sun, with the moon as beings.
Yeah.
Learn more.
Yeah. That's an odd question that I really like. There is, the sun gods is actually what I really like talking about a lot. And people are like, what do you mean sun gods? I'm like, there's beings that live in the sun, and they're like, how can anyone live in the sun? But when you start to understand that our senses is what's generating our reality based on our body, there's another type of body. These are like chemical-based operating system of the human body. And there's another operating system that's a light-based operating system. And so nature and the elements don't affect you in the same way. And the light-based operating system is another way of saying the gods or goddesses. It's also another way of saying like an immortal being. And that's the sun gods, because they're in the light, or in that nucleus where they generate light. And that's kind of, from what I've learned from the visions, that's essentially like the objective of the life, is figuring out how to take a body that's based on chemistry and convert it into a body that's based on light. And all that comes down to breath, brain waves, and memory. And the beautiful thing about breath and brain waves and memory is no one can do it for you.
That's true.
They're your memories. You're the one who has to go in. You're the one who has to do the conversion. You're the one who makes your realizations and realize who you are and how you function. So it's not something anybody else can do for you. And it really brings out those concepts like we all have the ability inside of us to heal ourselves. And we have to be responsible for our own body. This is our body. We can't rely on somebody else to make sure that it's being taken care of. It's our responsibility alone. And even if we try to put that responsibility on someone else, they're still not able to actually care for it properly. And that's because every time we go through an experience, the brain stores that experience as memory. And it takes energy to store memories. So every day that moves by, you lose more energy because your brain is storing more memories. As we get older, our body keeps breaking down progressively because we keep going through more and more experiences. Eventually to the point where the body and the cells no longer have enough energy to operate because all the energy is being used to store memory. And that's when the body really starts to break down and eventually dies. And so that was really the source of everything, was the not having energy because it's stored in memory. And so all the techniques are really based on just that one simple function, or which is activate a specific type of memory and then use breathing or other techniques to convert that charge in that memory and free up that energy again so that our body can heal.
So for example, I think that also is similar to my perspective. So I'm going to share it with you and see what you think. So what I feel is that everything is energy. So energy is freely flowing, but all those memories, we start filtering the energy, blocking the energy becomes more stagnant. So that is what doesn't allow for us to be present in the now, to renew ourselves and everything. So would it be similar to what you are sharing?
Yeah, exactly. That's how they work. They're like filters.
Right.
But some memories are really productive. We learn how to harness energy. We learn how to do amazing things with it. Whereas other actions and other habits, cause chaos.
Right.
If we've had a trauma, it affects our senses. We just don't see things the same way after that. And so to be able to go back and convert those charges and free up that energy and take that layer off of our eyes and return us back to a more pure state, You know, it's like the eyes of a child is where we want to be able to see, and
Yeah.
but with the wisdom of an adult, you know.
Beautiful. I love that. And I feel that a lot of it has to do with transforming our societies because distract us from that awareness of our breathing and, things such as what you work with, the sacred geometry. You work a lot with that too. And I
Uh,
think that, that what you think about these monuments in certain places of the world that maybe are transforming how we perceive that environment of sacred geometry.
well, I love sacred geometry because you know the sacred G that we developed is you know sacred geometry is really you know usually classified as like three-dimensional structures and the building blocks of life. And what I focused into or developed was a technology we call sacred G, which is just taking the geometry off and just and so I refer to that as like a two-dimensional sacred geometry, and that is a whole different type of technology altogether. And you know, since about 2006, we've sold about 2.5 million prints.
Oh my goodness.
Sacred G, we had it featured on MTV
Oh, wow.
Big Show, so they did a featured episode just on Sacred G and how it works and
Oh
does
my
it work.
goodness. Do you
And
have that online? Can we?
yeah, and yeah, you can. You can actually go to the Robin Big Show on MTV. It's season 3, episode 8.
Oh,
And
nice.
Rob Dyrdek landed a trick he's never landed in his life on the show, and so all of a sudden, millions of people just now know about sacred geometry. You know, as a
Amazing.
result. So that was, I think, that was a really big boost. We have a new type of technology now because I've been developing sacred G technology since 2004. And we're just coming out. We've only had it available for members, but we call it our last design was Sacred G Omega, and we figured out how to do like Wi-Fi, you know, like a wireless transmission of this energy,
Ooh.
and
Oh.
so we call it Omega-Fi.
Oh my
You know?
goodness. That's awesome. So, where can we find more information, or can you share about that a little more?
Yeah, and that's going to be on lifemastery.com as well.
Beautiful.
Right now, you can just put your name and email in there, and we'll email you probably within the next couple of weeks when we open up the site.
Oh,
But
amazing.
the incredible thing, though, is that you know over the years I've been developing the techniques and how to do the hands-on work, and then I go to the Sacred G and work on the technology, and then I go back to the techniques, and so it's always gone back and forth. And this last year, what we've done is we've integrated the two together. So we figured out how to link up the energy to come hit our body, open us up, and then we harness that energy through techniques. So we're using the techniques to give it instructions. So and it's accelerated everything. What we used to do with a breathing session that was like 90 minutes or you know to 2 hours for a really traumatic experience, you know, which would normally take a few years of normal like therapy. And with the breathing techniques, within 2 hours, there was no charge left in that
Wow.
memory. You could look at it and you'd be like, oh, it's shit happens, you know,
My
and
goodness.
it's not a big deal.
And
And then and
this
then
is
what
something that, sorry, this is something that the person will have to practice every so often, or it's just a one-time thing?
well, once you activate it and then you get the energy streams hooked up, it's the energy that processes it, and it's kind of like it's basically like the difference between a typewriter and a computer. You know how you know if you had to type a paragraph or a page and you had to type it over and over, you know it would take a long time, right? But with this, it's like a computer. You just hit copy and paste, and it just runs through the circuits.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah. What used to take us like 2 years, and this is a technique we developed over like 8 years' time. It was called Breath of Love, and it was like this really amazing breathing technique. And you know, there's about 3,000 people that know how to do this technique.
Hmm.
And this new way that we've integrated it in with the technology, we can do and what would take 2 hours, we can do it in 2 minutes.
Beautiful. And I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to do something. People will see me and maybe they think I'm crazy, but I know you know what it is.
Ah, yes.
Can you share about that?
Yeah, that's you know, I'll show you the upgraded one. I haven't really showed
Oh,
anybody. It's here, so it's kind of like a peace sign, but you just bring your two fingers together. And then what you do is you look at the water. And when you're looking at the water, that's your eyes will tell you that's what you're going to charge up. And then you just put your hands up. And while you're looking at the water, you're feeling your fingertips here. And what will happen is you'll start to feel a little tingling sensation in your fingertips. When you have that tingling sensation, the energy is ready, and then you can just double tap the glass and you can drink it, and it's way stronger.
Awesome. Thank you for the upgrade. So this is called an app? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's an app. It's the first. We have apps that we've built, and they're basically like applications on how to apply the energy streams, or this using different hand motions or movements, or just certain sequences with our senses. But this one is unique because it's the very first one that we actually had integrated into the human body. So there's like a whole set of like coding that links it up with your mitochondria for like energy production, and the more you drink it, the stronger it gets. So it's basically like it's the first step in like really building up your own body and your own energy. And but now you can actually do it with anything. Besides water, it's actually all set up now for food. You can do herbs. You can do crystals. You can even do memories, like past memories and stuff, which we're going to have on the Life Mastery site for people to learn how to do. And it's an automated thing. So basically, the double tap is doing the same thing to the water that happens to you when you do the G breath that we did.
And this reminds me of something. I heard about you feeling the kind of, I don't know if call it reptilian brain or more like primitive brain. So do you feel that our work is about integrating all these parts of ourselves, and maybe with these systems we can do that? Or do you
Yeah, definitely integrating. And there's like, when we talk about healing, a lot of people want to heal themselves, and heal yourself before you heal other people. And then they start doing a lot of work on themselves, and they open up senses, and then they can pick up all this energy from other people. So then they're like, okay, now we have to like fix everybody else, and it becomes a scramble because your senses are open up and you're picking up all this stuff everywhere, right? But that one, it has no end. And so we call that the others, and it's the others, but we interpret it as the other people out here. But what it actually is the other people inside your memories. So when you close your eyes and you go back to an experience, you're like, oh, this is what I was experiencing. Once you convert your own charges, you don't have that individual identity in your memory anymore. You can actually step into the other people inside your memory. You have thoughts that you're like, those aren't my thoughts. That's not how I think. It comes from them. And it's what your body is picking up. So your body is not only just storing your experience, it's also storing the experience of the other people who are around us. And when you do that, what happens is we got the left side of the brain, which is a little bit slow processor, and it's more the individual, and that's like the self. And you convert those charges, those of yourself, and then it switches you over to the right brain. And that's the supercomputer, because now it's the others, which is there's you and everybody else. And everybody else is your right brain, but it's also agreements that you have with everybody. They're like underlying agreements based on the experiences that we've gone through together. So when you open up and you move from the self to the others, now that's where your senses come from. And then you go out into an environment, and all of a sudden you're picking up all this stuff, and everybody's like, I don't want these negative charges, and they're just pushing them out, and you're going, oh crap, it's just coming at you. So what you do is you go into the memories of the other people inside your mind, and you train your brain on how to convert other people's charges. And then what happens when everybody starts throwing you their charges, your brain is trained to convert them, and then all of a sudden people are like, I like you, I feel good around you. Because you automatically make them feel better, because your brain and your body is trained to convert their charges. So that's the trick, and most people don't know that, and that's where that's what eliminates the the effect from the environment when you're opening up. And then what happens there is you move from the self or the left brain to the others, or the other people, and the right brain. And then you move into a planetary memory system, which is the whole brain. And that's where you get into the pineal gland. And that's where you access like the higher senses, and you get the downloads, when you get those energy surges come through and you can see so much stuff all at once. And then it goes away and you're like, no, no, come back. I want more of that. That
Oh,
sensation just never happens enough.
that's amazing. Oh my
So,
goodness. And time ago I saw some videos of you and you were speaking about how you experience yourself like in a cell,
uh-huh.
and then from that cell, I don't know, that there were other cells around you. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. I do know what you're talking about. It's the way that we're all actually like all linked up. Um, it kind of reminds me of there's like a development model that we're on this path, but we don't really know where we're going. And once you understand it's about memory, and you close your eyes, what you're actually doing is going back into the past. And so as we move back further into our history, or as we become more of a child or remember more of our childhood memories, we're opening up a pathway from where we are now back to our youth. And eventually you can get far enough that you can get back into your birth, and you can remember being born in your mom's womb, and you can feel what it's like to be there. And I always call birth, it's the gateway to the heavens. That's the actual gates of heaven. And then once you get into the actual birth, there's a whole nother system where you make your way up through the canal and eventually into the egg. And for 30 minutes, when you're first conceived, you're a single-celled organism. And that single-cell organism, that's the oneness that we're looking for. Another word I use to describe it is atomic consciousness.
Hmm.
And that's our link that we have with the core of the planet, or the Earth, and its molten core. And that is like a little mini sun, because of the molten core in the Earth is like the sun or the sun gods. But for that 30 minutes that we're a single cell organism, we are at our creator state. We are at our highest level of consciousness. And so that's what we're actually moving towards, and as far as like reconnecting back with who we are. So the more memories you process, the more patterns you have, and you see that one little incident when you were 3 all of a sudden induced this 30-year-long pattern that you had no idea, but it was just one belief system that happened, and that's the way you did things, from that point on. So
Okay.
and that's where the self mastery really starts to come in, and so that's like it's amazing, because then we actually have a pathway. We're not just processing a million memories from our life. We're just processing streams or threads, like back through our history, taking us back to our birth, and then back to a point where we can reach our oneness on the inside.
So all of these are things that people can learn at lifemastery.com.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah,
people is
absolutely.
learning it and going back to birth.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I have to check it out.
Yeah,
And
and we're gonna have the site launched here right away. It's we had the other membership, we were building everything in, and in the meantime we've been building our one for like a lot of people. And so
nice.
it's got all the bells and whistles, and it's pretty cool.
So then,
So
just to make sure that everybody has your website, one
yeah,
is lifemastery.com and the other is corelove.com,
corelove.com,
sacredg.com. Is that
uh,
correct?
sacredgeometry.com.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, sacredgeometry.com. That one has a bunch of videos on it too. Core Love has some videos, and it's got kind of like a longer story of my experience. I shared a lot doing a lot of workshops and radio shows over the years. And finally, one guy who was actually a video producer, like movie producer, says, you just got to do a really in-depth one that really encompasses the whole thing and really drives it home. And he says, when you do, you'll understand why you do what you do and what's really actually driving you underneath. And so I was like, okay, that's definitely a challenge. It's scary, because to open yourself up and be vulnerable about detail, the more details, the more vulnerable you become. And but he was absolutely right. It was helped me reconnect with what actually drives me to get up and just keep doing this stuff every day, nonstop. And so that's a really cool video. So that's posted up there. It's a little bit long, but that's because that's what the guy wanted.
Well, we really appreciate that you are sharing all of this because it's not something that happens to everyone, right? So we learn from it and we appreciate that you are sharing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think that's the number. Whenever we have a really amazing experience in our life, all we want to do is share it with somebody, so we can talk about it and experience it deeper. And that's one thing that I've always dreamt of doing, is being able to help people get into these spaces where they can connect and have these visions and go travel and experience life in this completely different way. And so that's kind of what underlies my whole drive is, you just, when you find something cool, it's never really real till you share it with other people, and you can do it together.
And for a while, you disappeared a little bit because I think when I found your videos, it was 2010, and
Yeah.
then I didn't hear from you in a while. So what happened there?
Well, we did a coast to coast radio show, and we started talking about sun gods and the breathing techniques and how this is how you convert memory, and this is the really the one of the real ways that you can heal yourself, because you can do it chemically, but your body just changes and it finds another way to, because it doesn't have the energy to run. And then afterwards, we had like real weird experiences with like the FDA trying to get into our servers, and then we talked to our investors, and then we talked to lawyers, and so we already know that they're like snooping around all of our stuff, and we've got claims on our website, but they're not really claims that we're making. They're just claims up from testimonials, but that doesn't matter because there's not a bunch of backing. And so we were like, well, what do we do about it? And so after talking with the investors and lawyers, they just said, well, you know what, let's just close it down. We'll regroup, we'll put some more stuff together, we'll advance what we're doing, we'll find ways around this stuff, which we did. We got certified as like ministers, in the United States. We've got a nonprofit organization. We don't ever have to pay taxes there again because of that. We can do all of our healing and natural health. We're covered legally as a result.
Wow.
So we set up our whole actual infrastructure, and now we're in Costa Rica, so it doesn't really matter that much. But we still do have, a good solid base and a network in the United States, and having these systems set up and available. We've got people that are basically like ready to start training other people up as ministers to make, their practice, because, in the United States, you can't even really do Reiki legally because you actually can't touch anybody unless you're a massage therapist or a doctor or a naturopath. You're not legally allowed to touch somebody. The moment you do, they can sue you, and there's no legal backing, nothing for it. And to take a year-long or a 6-month-long massage course for a lot of money when you've already got skills and you're not really doing massage, you're doing energy techniques. If you can go out and get a minister's license and have that level of protection, plus, an actual like corporate infrastructure so that you can actually get out there. And that's what that whole ordeal taught us, was that, a lot of these natural health and people have such a good heart, but they don't understand the mechanics of the way that this world works. And without these protections in place, you just don't have the capability to grow to a really large level and make a really huge impact like all of us want to do. So I think in the end, that whole experience really, really drove everything forward. It definitely hurt our business, but thankfully, we got some investors who kind of helped just keep us going and keep us afloat, because we
Nice.
just closed everything down, and we just went from like, having money and sales to all of a sudden nothing for a couple of years. So that was a whole thing. It's pretty traumatic, to be honest with you. And we didn't talk about it uh, because of the nature of it, and our lawyers just said, no, don't say anything, just send an email and say sayonara. So
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm so happy to see you back, and that this has served so that you can go to the next level. Now you're living in an amazing place in Costa Rica, and I'm sure you will continue inspiring people. So I'm happy about that.
it actually feels good. You're the first person and the first radio show I've actually talked about what happened. So it actually feels good to kind of get it get it off
Thank
my
you.
chest, because there's nothing worse than all of a sudden having to close everything down, and you've got all these amazing people, but you you can't talk about it,
Mm.
I was like, you know what, this time I'll be back and I'm gonna be bigger and better,
Yes,
than
yes.
ever. And and that's where we're at now. So it feels good.
We
It's been a
support
whole.
you. Yes.
Yeah.
And you are speaking also as a voice for many of us that feel frustrated about those situations because, why are not we recognized as healers? And, so we are all in a similar situation. So we hear you and we support you for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It means a lot. Um, I guess we're not. I mean, we're not the only people that happened to. I used to shop at that place in Santa Monica, the raw food place that ended up getting raided because of raw milk, and they like just destroyed their lives and their company and tons of fines. And I was always questioning: is that the right idea? Did we do the right thing by just kind of just cutting it out when we knew that they were already like gunning for us after that radio show? And I think we made the best decision because after I
Mhm.
saw what happened to those guys in Santa Monica and then the big fines that go on and then the other stuff that's happening in the United States, I'm like, that was probably good to just step back, regroup, put things together so everything's protected and set up properly, and then move forward again. So
So,
it's
people like you, like Sasha Stone, I don't know if you saw our interview. I feel that all of us coming together and expressing fully how we feel about these situations, little by little, are going to create more awareness and really transform things. So I'm grateful for your sharing.
uh, well, and that's like we can't have a big impact if we all don't work together, and
Exactly.
that's something that we've been building into the whole life mastery system is the way that we can all work together and collaborate and build workshops and promote ourselves and each other and uh, you know uh, used to do masterminds, and masterminding was a big thing, but all you did was sat on the phone and or a phone conference and talked about a few ideas and it stopped there. And we
Oh,
realized, well, that wasn't really working because we weren't actually using tools, we weren't actually building, we weren't actually collaborating or writing the documents together. And so the masterminds, just kind of, it was a good idea, but it didn't really kind of get past that idea phase. And so with Life Mastery, we kind of got more of a collaboration. We can work on documents together real time. We can build spreadsheets together real time from
that's
anywhere in the world. We can do hangouts like what this is with 15 people, and they're all protected in private, just for our members. And anybody can make one and add it into the system, and it's protected just for us members. So to be able to collaborate and work together like this is just going to be a really big thing, and I think it's going to have a huge impact.
beautiful. So we're going to complete the show now. And I would like for you to share just a last message that you would like to share with our audience.
A last message, maybe just something to think about. Um, if you don't eat, if you don't eat, usually it takes about 30 or longer days for your body to break down and die. Without water, it's like 4 or 5 days. Without air, it's 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. We really focus into breath because it's a perfect communication system. If you're
Mm,
taking a bunch of products like food and supplements, you're looking at this 30-day window for it to reach your whole body, and that's usually what you'll say is you can start expecting results to really start happening about the 3 or 4 week point. We do a lot of juicing and cleanses with juices, and it has a really powerful and a really quick effect, and has changed a lot of our lives really easily. And with this breath system that we have, we've done things just with breath. Like a guy at the airport who's like limping because his hip has been bothering him for like 10 years and nobody can do anything about it. And I'm like, oh, okay, we just got to go push on a few points, activate him. He does the breath and he's like, whoa, gone. How the hell did that happen? I'm like, because breath is fast. It's like 2 minutes and it changes stuff like instantly. Like we have this ability inside of us with our breath. As long as we understand the sequences and then how it works with the brain waves, we don't need all the technical stuff. We just know that we can push anywhere that hurts, activate the memory, and do these breathing sequences, and we heal ourselves. So to be able to have something so simple and so powerful, and that it happens like real time, like instantly. By the time that sensation's worn off or lightheadedness, the healing has already happened. So that's something to think about breath. And on sacredgeometry.com, you'll find that we have breathing techniques on there, and there's a video called One Breath. And it takes like 1 minute and 45 seconds to do that video. That's how long it is. And so all you got to do is push on the spots, make it hurt, follow along with the video, do the breath, and you can start healing your body, and you'll see results instantly. So I think that's probably the most important thing I could share with you, because it really brings out the actual power and potential that you have. And that being responsible for your own body and your own health is not something that's scary. It's actually super easy, and it's way easier than sitting in a doctor's office for an hour. You could have done a lot of spots on your body in an hour with breath.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you also to all our listeners and viewers, because this will be also in a video. So thank you so much, Cor, and thank you for your time, for all the things that you are sharing with everyone. And it is a pleasure to connect with you.
Thank you, Victoria. It was a real pleasure to be on here.
Okay.
And thank you to everybody who watches and listens and taking the time to hear about what we're working on, and we look forward to getting to know you better.
Okay, so bye.
You are listening to the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Welcome to Earth Sky People Radio. Living in harmony with Mother Earth and awakening to an intergalactic society. With your host, Victoria Vives, founder of Reiki Wellbeing and co-founder of the Earth Sky People Movement.